Friends, welcome to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me. And we're starting. The world is so unpredictable. Everything happens suddenly. We like to think that we are in control of our own existence. In some ways it is, and in some ways it is not. But mostly our lives are influenced by random circumstances. Paul Austin. My name is Salvatore Benedetti. My friends call me Sal. I travel quite often on business, on average about 10 days a month. It suits me fine. I'm single, I don't have any children, and I make a pretty good living. I have already developed the habits of a seasoned traveler. Over time, I've learned to be quite tolerant of people who go on vacation and who I have to deal with at airports. I always travel light and never hand over my bag during a flight. I have very high requirements for hotel service. If they make a mistake in booking rooms or they have rude staff, I'll move out right away. And so I'm standing, angry as hell, in the parking lot of the Marriott Hotel in downtown Chicago at 2:30 in the morning, wearing only shorts and a t-shirt that serve as my usual pajamas for the night. The fire alarm woke me up from a dead sleep, and since my room was on the 12th floor, the walk down the fire escape turned out to be quite a long walk. Fortunately, it's June and the early morning air is not too cool. I'm wearing a baseball cap pulled low just to let the other hotel guests know that I'm not interested in discussing the causes of the alarm. When I stand aside, one person attracts my attention. This is a woman about my age, tall and with a gorgeous figure. Her hair is pulled back in a ponytail. She is leaning against the same tall guy. He is also well built, holds her in a warm embrace and whispers something in her ear. Her face is flushed and she is giggling like a schoolgirl who has just been told a vulgar joke. At one point, she snuggles up and kisses him warmly on the lips, her hand stroking his cheek. Obviously, they are lovers who were interrupted by a fire alarm. He's probably telling her something about how lucky they are that one of the firefighters didn't break into the room while they were together. My pulse quickened and my breathing became ragged. The guy looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't remember him in any way. But I knew that tomorrow morning I would definitely remember who he was. But I knew the woman pretty well. We had dinner with her and her husband 5 days ago. Her name is Lily Wellston, and she is the wife of my childhood best friend Tim Wellston Sr. I was the godfather of Tim Jr., one of their 2 children. Let me explain everything. Tim and I grew up 5 blocks apart and went to elementary school together. These 5 blocks separating our houses might as well have been on opposite sides of the planet, they were so different. Tim lived on the edge of a decent blue-collar neighborhood in Lexington, Kentucky. His father, Big Ed, was a policeman, and his mother, Tina, was a high school math teacher. Together, they earned decent money, had a modest but cozy home, and could provide for their 4 children, of whom Tim was the youngest. If you had walked 3 blocks east of Tim's house, crossed the railroad tracks, turned left, and walked 2 more blocks, you would have found yourself in another world, in my neighborhood. I never knew my fucked-up dad, and my mom worked 2 jobs to have a roof over her head. I had an older brother, Mike, who also tried to help earn some money when he grew up. Between night shifts in the cleaning crew at Good Samaritan Hospital and working at the counter at the local diner, Mom somehow managed to make ends meet. Tim and I became friends in the 6th grade. One day after school, I was walking home when I saw 4 8th graders surround Tim, and it was clear that they were going to beat him up. My older brother, Mike, taught me how to stand up for myself and never back down in front of those who bully you. His advice was simple. If you can't avoid a fight, hit first and hit with all your might. Never run away from anyone, and even if you get beaten, they will still respect you afterwards. It was immediately clear that 1 against 4 was a bad deal for Tim. Since I already had enough experience in fights, without thinking twice, I ran into them from behind, knocking down several people. Grabbing the one who was the healthiest of them by the scruff of the neck, a guy named Wayne Parker, I hit him right in the jaw with all my might. It knocked him out and he fell to the ground. "What's going on here?" I shouted, looking at the remaining 3. I've always had a heightened sense of justice, and I was furious that 4 people attacked one. One of the guys, Tony Simmons, replied, "Wayne told Tim to give him his pocket money in a good way, and Tim said no. So Wayne decided to teach him a lesson." I began to boil with anger. "Tim, is this true?" He looked at me with a bloody nose and said, "Yes, and Wayne will never get my money." Life on the other side of the railway tracks teaches a person to make quick decisions, and even though these decisions were not always perfect, inaction is a sure path to disaster. After quickly figuring out what was going on, I laid out my solution to the problem. I glared at the three men who were with Wayne. You three, get out of here. If any of you try to step in and help Wayne, I'll kick your asses. And if you manage to kick my ass, then you'll have to deal with my brother Mike. Is everything clear to you? Mike was a tough nut to crack. Even the local bandits stayed away from him. At that time, James was the toughest crime boss in our neighborhood, and maybe in all of North Lexington. No one ever contacted Mike again, and he became a good friend of Aubrey. 4 years later, Mike enlisted in the Marine Corps. He spent 8 years rising to the rank of senior sergeant, after which he quit, returned home, and joined the Los Angeles Police Department. He now works as a homicide detective in the Major Crimes Unit. To this day, there is no one who would dare to cross his path. But going back to that case, I seriously doubted that my brother would interfere if I got my ass kicked by 3 teenagers who are only 2 years older than me. But they didn't know that, so they all nodded in agreement. So, Wayne, you're one-on-one with Tim now. If you think you can beat him up, go ahead. But if he kicks your ass, you'll leave him alone forever. An evil grin flashed across Wayne's blunt face. Obviously, he thought he could handle Tim without any problems. Of course, Sal, that's fine with me. In short, the fight ended in a draw. Parker was a head taller than Tim and at least 10 kilograms heavier, but he underestimated his opponent. Tim wasn't a very good fighter, but one thing was for sure. You'd have to kill him to make him surrender. Tim definitely got hurt more, but he didn't give up, hitting back with 2 or 3 good punches. Eventually, Wayne realized that this was a futile idea, and he just turned around and left. Tim's money remained with him, and no one ever tried to take it away from him again. When we returned home together, our friendship only strengthened. Why did you do that? You didn't have to stick up for me. I don't know myself. I guess I just hate people like Wayne. Anyway, thanks. Yeah, no problem, kid. I wasn't going to fight them for you. I just wanted to make sure you at least had a chance. It would have hurt me a lot if you had gotten into a fight instead of me. But thanks for leveling the odds. From that day on, we became Sal and the Kid. His parents liked me when they got to know me better, and Mike respected the Kid when I told him about his fight with Wayne. Mike was already graduating from high school at that time, and he decided that with such a character, the Kid should definitely learn how to box. Mike worked him up a sweat 3 nights a week, and the Kid learned fast. And by the time Mike left to join the Marines, even I didn't like going into the ring with my best friend anymore. We did all the usual teenage shit together. Girls, beer, sports, and sometimes a little weed when I could get it. Kid was a well-read nerd, and I had an easy manner of communication that helped us meet girls. Just to be clear, neither of us ever made love before graduation, but it wasn't for lack of trying. Kid went to college and got a degree in business. I studied for 2 years in college and got an associate degree in something called interdisciplinary studies. I'm sure that meant he knows everything, but he can't do shit. Kid met and fell in love with Lil in college. I remained single, but I was best man at his wedding, 2 years after graduating from college. He went to work at a local bank, and I opened my own landscaping business. We were both fine, and 3 years later I became Tim Jr.'s godfather. 2 years after that, Lil gave birth to Mary, around the same time that the Kid began to climb the career ladder in the world of finance. 3 years later, my small business was booming when Kid came to visit me one afternoon. We talked for a couple of hours, and the essence of our conversation was that the Kid wanted to attract several investors to my business so that I could expand. He explained everything to me very clearly, and as a result, a little less than a month later, I received a check for $200,000, which allowed me to immediately double the number of equipment and crews. I became a serious player in the landscape design world in central Kentucky, eventually opening businesses in Louisville, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and Nashville. I also started representing John Deere sometimes, so I started traveling more often. And now I'm standing in the parking lot of a Chicago hotel at 2:30 in the morning, and I feel like my world is falling apart. I loved Lil like my own sister, and it would never have occurred to me that she was capable of cheating on Kid. They had been married for about 12 years, and it seemed that everything was fine with them. Of course, they quarreled from time to time, like any married couple, but the Kid was an exemplary husband and father. And despite the fact that he worked hard, he never missed any anniversaries, birthdays, or family holidays. Periodically, he took Lil somewhere for the whole weekend so that their romantic relationship would not weaken from the everyday routine. It always seemed to me that she adored her husband, so there was no reason to believe that there was anything wrong between them. After taking a few deep breaths, I tried to focus on what I had to do now. Lil hadn't noticed me yet, but that could change at any second. I quickly took out my phone and took some pictures and then switched to video and recorded what was happening for a couple of minutes. I had enough evidence that these two weren't just friends. The video clearly showed him hugging her to him for a long kiss while stroking her ass. I don't know how I restrained myself from smashing his face in the parking lot. It was good that at that moment the lights out signal was given and the guests began to return to the hotel. I waited for a while and saw them get into the elevator with about 6 other people. Their cubicles stopped on the 8th, 9th, and 14th floors. And although this information was not enough, nevertheless, I decided that at the moment I had nothing else to do but return to my room. I kept tossing and turning until 6 in the morning, after which I went for a long run to relieve my anger and frustration. Later that morning, I saw that asshole again. I still couldn't remember his name, but I knew it was only a matter of time. He was standing at the front desk when I slipped into the queue behind him to listen to what was going on. "Yes, Dr. Porter, how can I help you? I need to have some business meetings, so I won't be here all day. But my wife is staying here. Could you call her room in about an hour and tell her that she has a full range of spa treatments booked for the whole day?" "Oh, absolutely, sir. So, Mrs. Porter, room 1419. A full range of spa treatments from her loving husband." I couldn't see his face, but it was clear that he was bursting with self-satisfaction. "Yes, that's right," he replied with a grin. "Exactly that, from her loving husband." I turned around and walked away quickly before he could see me. He probably wouldn't have recognized me anyway, unless he had a photographic memory. We were briefly introduced to this Dr. Asshole Porter once, at a social event at the Kids about 2 years ago. He worked as a surgeon at a local clinic, and was a member of the community council with Lil. The public council dealt with scholarship issues for children in our city who lived below the poverty line. The reason I came to Chicago was an exhibition of landscaping equipment. But it didn't matter anymore. I was still confused and couldn't decide what I should do, so I did what I always did when I was completely confused. I called my older brother. After a 30-minute conversation, I already began to have a concrete plan of action. 2 hours later, and $200 poorer, I slipped into Dr. and Mrs. Porter's room. And all thanks to the fact that one of the cleaning staff had absolutely no reason to doubt that I was the same guest staying in room 1419, who simply lost his key card due to his absent-mindedness. After talking to Mike, I firmly decided that I would not get into this fight instead of the kid, but if I managed to pull off what Mike advised, then I, damn it, will at least be sure that the kid will have an equal chance, as a child. 2 days later, I drove into the garage of my house and got to work organizing the information I just received. Mike came over to my place for a beer that night and made sure I didn't screw up by following his advice. He made several amendments, but generally gave his approval to my plan. The next morning, I called the kid. "Sal, dude, how did it go in Chicago?" "It's okay, kid. How's your family doing?" "Everything is fine, but the kids are asking when Uncle Sally is coming. Lil, she just got back from New York. She went to visit her sister, so how about we come over this Friday for steaks, beer, and sit together?" "You say Lil was in New York, right? And how's Connie doing?" "Everything seems to be in order. Lily was a little tired when she got home. She said that Connie had exhausted her pretty much, but she had a great time." "Yes, I have no doubt," I thought. "Of course, kid, everything is in force for Friday." It was Friday night, and I put on an Oscar-worthy performance. Lil and I kissed on the cheek when I arrived, and I really enjoyed playing with my godson and Mary. Later, when the kids had gone to bed, Lil, Kid, and I were sitting in the backyard drinking beer. "So, Sal, how was the exhibition in Chicago?" Kid asked. I glanced sideways at Lil and saw her flinch slightly. Being too caught up in her affair, obviously she forgot where I was supposed to be last week. "Yes, on the whole, not bad, kid. I looked at some new equipment that I will most likely buy. I made some useful new acquaintances and had a good time, except for Tuesday night." "What happened?" I watched Lil out of the corner of my eye as I told her what had happened. "The damn hotel fire alarm went off at 2:30 in the morning. My room was on the 12th floor and I had to drag my ass down 12 flights of stairs and then stand in the parking lot for half an hour, all because it was a false alarm." Lil looked a little pale and fidgeted nervously, looking at the floor, but the kid didn't pay attention to it. "Yeah, it sucks, dude, but for that, this night run should have been good for you." The kid grinned. "That's for sure. It's a good thing I didn't stay in the penthouse on the 14th. so I saved myself a couple of flights. How's Connie doing, Lil? The kid told me that you had a great few days with her in New York. To give her her due, for a cheating fool, she held herself perfectly and kept her composure completely. We had a nice time with her, though, as always, Sal. Oh, and also she asked if you had changed your position on the bachelor life? Well, like hell you do, Lil, you know me. Marriage and fatherhood, it's not for me. I'm a confirmed bachelor and I plan to stay that way. Marriage can hurt too much. Look what happened to my mom. She married a guy who cheated on her repeatedly and then left her with Mike and me. There's no way I'm going to be exposed to such betrayal. Damn it, Sal, the kid replied. You're too pessimistic. Who knows, maybe somewhere nearby there is a wonderful woman with whom you can have an amazing marriage. Just look at us. My heart was about to burst apart, but I kept my cool. Well, yes, I said, looking at both of them. Maybe there is such a woman, but I'm not ready to take any chances yet. I have a best friend. I can play with his children when I get the itch of fatherhood, and I'm not risking anything. Do you agree with me, Lil? I looked her straight in the eye. It seems that at that moment she realized that I knew about her second life. But this lying fool didn't even blink an eye. I think marriage is wonderful, despite the fact that it is difficult and has its ups and downs. A full-fledged family gives children the opportunity to grow up in a safe and loving environment. Even if there are grudges or disagreements, two loving people will still stay together after going through all the difficulties. And this is the most important thing. Lil has just made it clear in no uncertain terms that I'd better keep my mouth shut so as not to harm my friend and his children, despite her disgusting act. But I didn't back down. No matter what, Lil. Yes, Sal, no matter what. With that, she stood up, yawned, and stretched. Well, that's it. I went to bed. Don't stay up late, Tim. I'll see you again, Sal. I'm always glad to see you in our house. What a hypocritical fool. It seems that the only thing that upset her was that she got caught, and apparently she did not care at all about the fact of her infidelity and such a disdainful attitude towards her husband, who could without exaggeration be considered one of the best on the planet. I barely managed to keep my composure enough to drink another beer and then return home. All the way, I was thinking about how Lil reacted to my words. I wondered if I could let her manipulate my attitude towards Kid and the kids and become complicit in all this disgusting lies and betrayal. Should I really keep quiet about her affair, for the sake of their family's well-being, and even despite the fact that this cheater will continue to spread her legs in front of Dr. Asshole? I replayed it over and over in my head as I drove home, and by the time I turned into the driveway, I already knew the only correct answer. Damn it, no. 2 days later, I started acting. First thing on Monday, I made an appointment with an asshole surgeon at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. One of my teams was engaged in landscaping the medical clinic where he worked and, as it turned out, this building belonged to Porter. Since I myself have not been involved in concluding contracts for the work performed for a long time, the risk that Porter would guess who I was before we met was small. I told his secretary that I had additional agreements to previously concluded contracts that Dr. Porter must sign so that our cooperation would not be interrupted. It will take literally 10 minutes. She promised to squeeze me into the schedule. Then I sent a message to the lying cheater. Meet me at 10 a.m. at the Common Ground coffee shop on East High Street. A minute later, she answered, Sorry, I have a couple of appointments, so I won't be able to come. I smiled. Okay, it's okay. Then I'll just send the kid a couple of photos that I took in the parking lot of the Chicago Marriott Hotel last Tuesday at 2:30 in the morning. In these photos, Dr. and Mrs. Porter look very cute together. The answer came immediately. You're bluffing. Well, let's check it out, you fool. If you're not there at 10:01, I'll send him the photos, and then I'll go to his fucking office and show him a tape of you and your asshole doctor making love to each other on Wednesday night at the same Marriott. I really hope that you won't come after all, you lying cheater. I don't believe you. You don't have shit. A moment later. Hey, slut, open the attachment. The fucking clock is ticking. Don't be late for a minute or I'll burn your world to the ground. Bastard. I'll be there, but I'll make sure that from now on you disappear completely from my life with Tim. You will never see your godson or Mary again. I chose the Common Ground because it was far enough away from Tim's office. My intention was to give that cheating Lil a chance to come clean and show some remorse, and I didn't want our conversation to be interrupted. I arrived about 20 minutes early, took a cup of black coffee, and found a table at the back of the hall. Lil came in at 9:58, and I thought to myself, Well, it turns out that hardened cheaters can be trained. She walked straight to the table and sat down on a chair, looking at me with eyes full of anger. I see you didn't even bother to get me a latte. Order yourself something if you really want something to drink. I assume Dr. Porter left money on your bedside table after you served him? She looked so furious that for a second I thought she was going to throw herself at me across the table. To be honest, I would have liked to punch this bitch in the face. But she stopped and suddenly drooped abruptly. I would never dream of hurting Tim or hurting our children, she said without looking up. It's a pretty weird way to take care of your family, Lil. What's gotten into you anyway? I don't know myself. It all started with a simple flirtation after board meetings, and in the end, one thing led to another. One evening, we ended up in bed at his house when his wife was out of town, and Tim took the kids to visit his parents that day, and I was on my own. I was so excited about it. I was able to put aside all my responsibilities as a wife and mother for one night, and it seemed to me that it was very cool. But I never thought it would take so long. I just can't find a way to stop it all. Well, Lil, I can honestly say you shocked me. I never would have thought that you would lie and cheat on my best friend. I'd bet the mortgage on my house that this would never happen. When I saw you two in the Marriott parking lot, I almost fainted. At first, I thought I had something wrong with my eyesight, but to my deep regret, it turned out not to be so. You understand that by your actions, you can completely destroy one of the best people that I know. Please, Sal, don't. There must be some other way out. I can't admit it. It will break him. Can't we find a compromise? I promise I'll break up with Porter immediately. Let the photos and videos stay with you. It will be a pledge that guarantees you that I will do exactly as I say. I will never slip up again. And if Tim doesn't find out, then our family will be safe and our children will be fine. It's getting late, Lil. You can't undo what you've done. You should have thought carefully about the consequences of your double life back when you first decided to make love to Porter out of nothing to do. What you're going to do with Porter now is up to you, but I'm not going to let my best friend be made a laughingstock or have his ears pulled, and I certainly won't stand by and watch you ruin his life just because you screwed up, and now you don't want to be responsible for your actions. But Lil, it seems, was not going to give up so easily and decided to go on the offensive herself. No, you won't do that, Sal. You're not going to put Tim in a situation where he's going to lose his wife, most of his money, his kids, and the life he has and cherishes. Don't corner me. You know there won't be a peaceful divorce. I'll shake everything out of him, and when he asks me why I'm doing this, trust me, I'll make sure he knows that you started it all. So maybe it's better to listen to reason and not get too excited. Help me get out of this situation so that I can save my marriage and family without hurting anyone. Or for him, everything will end very sadly and then he will hate you. I just shook my head and grinned. Do you think this is funny, Sal? Understand, I'll drag you with me if you don't back down. I stopped smiling and gave Lil such a murderously cold look that she turned pale. Listen, Lil, the art of bluffing is that you have to have good cards in your hand from time to time. You just opened yours, and it's clear to both of us that you don't have anything. Are empty threats the best you can do, you stupid brainless fool? And you know what, Lil? Part of me sincerely hopes that you'll take the risk and make your threats come true. I understand that Kid will be crushed by what you've done, and will be even more devastated if you really try to rip him off in the divorce. But trust me, it won't break him completely. I know him. He will find the strength to stand up, and I will help him get through all this. Yes, it will hurt like hell, but if he knows that the truth is on his side, he will never give up and stop fighting you, and you'll see in the end, he will win. His name has a high reputation here. He is respected in this city because he did everything in his power for many people, and they know it. What do you have, Lil? A desire for revenge and a hysterical crowd of divorced idiots like you. Well, good luck trying to get people on your side when they see photos and videos of you and your lover. And don't doubt for a second that I won't send them to everyone who knows you in your social circle and beyond. Your parents and your whole family will see Dr. Porter using you from behind. They'll hear you moaning and whining like a fool in heat. Think about how they will feel when they hear you shouting, "Yes, use me, take what belongs to my husband and make me yours." I think that will be enough for them to understand what a lying cheater you have become. At first, Lil pretended that she was not at all embarrassed by this, but it seems that she already realized that she had been defeated and decided to change tactics. She made a feeble attempt to smile and whispered, "Isn't there anything I can do to change your mind, Sal? I mean, absolutely anything you want. I felt her foot begin to stroke one of my legs under the table. Reaching down, I forcefully pushed her away from me. The last trump card of a cheater, isn't it, Lil? You are ready to spread your legs even in front of your husband's best friend, if only it would help you avoid the consequences of your infidelity. But the thing is, I wouldn't touch you if you were the last woman on earth, Lil. You have no idea how much I hate you. When you kissed me on the cheek on Friday night when I arrived, I could barely restrain myself from throwing up. That's how disgusted I am with you. Lil seemed completely speechless. She was still looking at me defiantly, but she knew she had lost. So what now, holy Sal? She hissed. Now you will go home, call your husband and ask him to come while the children are still at school. Then you will tell him in detail everything that you have done. It will be a shock for him, of course, but at least he will have 3 or 4 hours to collect his thoughts before the children return home. This will give him a chance to respond properly to your words. I'm not going to get involved in anything, but I damn well have to make sure that he makes his decision based on all the truthfully stated facts on your part. To tell you the truth, I do not know what decision it will be, Lil. He's much better than me, and maybe he can find a way to forgive you, and you can move on as a family. Or he'll just throw you out of his life as you deserve, or maybe he'll find something in between. But in any case, it will be his choice, and I am sure that this choice will be impartial, which will not be influenced by lies, deception, or hatred. Getting up to leave, I finished. You're going to do it, Lil. You're going to do exactly as I said, or by all the saints, he's going to find out everything from me tonight. And if you force me to intervene, then believe me, I will make your complete destruction the goal of my life. Do you understand me, Lil? And only now did tears appear in her eyes, although I'm sure it was because she felt sorry for herself, and not for anyone else. Yes, Sal, I get it. Okay, was the only thing I could say to her at parting. I left the cafe, drove about a mile down the street, stopped on the side of the road and sat for a long time staring at one point. It is impossible to put into words the pain I felt for my friend because of what he had to face, but I reassured myself that he would not be alone, and it would be a fair fight. At exactly 16 o'clock, I was taken to the personal office of Dr. Asshole Porter. This arrogant asshole came in looking like he was doing me the greatest favor by giving me 10 minutes of his precious time. So, Mr. Benedetti, I was told that you have some additional agreements that you and I need to sign regarding the landscaping work that your company is doing. Can we do this quickly? I have very little time. I didn't say anything and quickly looked around the room, not bothering at all about his schedule. Tell me, Doc, this is a private office, right? I mean, by respecting patient confidentiality, you're not recording what's going on here, are you? That's right, Mr. Benedetti. Otherwise, it would violate about 10 state and federal patient protection laws. But what does this have to do with the lawn mowing agreement? That's good. I got up, walked around his desk, and with all the force I was capable of, hit him backhand. He stretched out on the floor and started moaning loudly, but 2 seconds later I had one hand on his throat and the other clamped over his mouth. It was obvious that Doc and I had grown up on opposite sides of the railroad tracks. I've been in dozens of fights, many of which I've won, a few I've lost, but I certainly could hold a punch. The same cannot be said about Dr. Asshole, who apparently got punched in the face for the first time in his life. Moreover, neither his height nor his physical form bothered me. Are you listening to me, Doc? He nodded affirmatively. Great. Now I'm going to ask you a few questions, and if I feel like you're lying to me, I'm going to strangle you until you pass out, and then we'll start all over again. Do you understand me? Tears began to flow down his face as he nodded his head. First, be a good boy and tell your assistant that we will be here for a while and not to be disturbed. But just do it calmly, and don't make me hurt you again. He started nodding affirmatively again. Okay, now I'll let you go, and you'll do as I told you. And I promise I won't lay a finger on you again. We'll just have a little chat. If not, you will greatly regret that you did not listen to me. Porter did what he was told in a calm voice, and his assistant did not suspect anything. So, Doc, do you know Lily Wellston? His eyes widened in surprise. Just say yes or no, that'll be enough. Yes. How do you know her? We worked together in the public council. I got up and leaned on the table. It's formal, but that's not all, is it, Doc? No, not all of them. I sat down again. And what else? We are lovers. How long has this been going on, Doc? 8 months. I suppose Mrs. Porter doesn't know, does she? Yes, that's right. She doesn't know anything. Well, that's okay, it's going to change soon, but we'll get back to that later. Tell me, before we met today, did you have any intention of ending an extramarital affair with this adulteress and cheating Lil? I don't think such insults are appropriate, Mr. Benedetti. I instantly jumped out of my chair. Pop! Maybe I went a little overboard because it looks like Doc started stargazing this time. Just answer my questions or I'll have to work hard on you. She's a lying, cheating fool and you're a fucking bag of shit. Now let's get back to my question. So, have you ever thought about stopping seeing her? He moved away from me. No, making love with her is the best thing I've ever had. Maybe sooner or later it would have gone away, like other relationships I've had in the past. But she's damn good at making love, and spending time with her is a pleasure, without exaggeration. Well, I believe you, Doc. Although it always seemed to me that a geek like you who steals other people's wives is incapable of telling the truth, but it seems that I was wrong. Now let me tell you what's going to happen next. First of all, before I leave this office, you will write her a message and tell her that you are leaving the public council immediately and will never see her again. From now on, there will be no more communication and no more love between you. You will tell her to never contact you and stay away from you. That's it. Your affair is over. Do you understand? Yes, I will do everything. And here's another thing, so that there is no misunderstanding. If her husband divorces her and your wife divorces you, you still won't get within a mile of her. Did you remember? Yes. Good. Secondly, now you're going to go home to your wife and tell her all about your betrayal of her and your marriage. And don't worry, you're not the only one today. Lil is doing the same thing with her husband right now. To be clear, I have your wife's contact information, as well as photos and video of you and Lil making love at the Chicago Marriott last week. Sometimes you can witness very interesting events taking place in the hotel parking lot when the fire alarm goes off in the middle of the night. Anyway, if you don't come clean, I'll send her all the evidence she can use against you in court when she fleeces you during the divorce. And finally, you will unconditionally accept any decision of your wife. If she forgives you and decides to continue living with you, I don't mind. But if she files for divorce, you won't dispute anything and give her everything she wants. Is everything clear? Yes, that's clear. But after you leave, why would I fulfill your conditions? Oh, that's a great question, Doc. Because if you don't comply with my requirements, you may have an accident at any moment. Maybe not tomorrow or even in a month. But one day when no one is around and you feel completely safe, anything can happen to you. No, no one's going to kill you. You won't get off that easy. But I can assume that you will most likely lose the ability to use both hands. And how, in that case, will you operate? You know that's the end of your surgical career, not to mention the pain you'll be in for the rest of your life. You and that slut Lil ruined the life of a very good man, and I'll never forget it for you. So remember that I will always be watching you, you piece of shit. Do you believe me, Doc? Yes. Once again, I will be watching you. And if you ever get involved with someone's wife again, some of my less than pleasant friends will visit you one night. And after that, broken arms will be the least of your problems. Do you understand that too? Yes. That's great. Now sign the landscaping contract and send a message to Lil. The epilogue. Lil and Porter confessed everything to their spouses exactly as I told them. Mrs. Porter immediately filed for divorce and Doc did not dispute anything. She received 75% of all their assets. By the way, I also raised his rate for landscaping by 50%. My poor dear friend Kid was not himself for a while. The confession of the woman to whom he gave his heart and soul, and who betrayed him so coldly, crushed him almost completely. He left town for 2 weeks to clear his head and not cause trouble. I spent the second week with him when he called and asked to meet with him to help sort things out. As I expected, it was very hard for him, but he didn't break down. He divorced Lil, and although the children live with him most of the time, they have joint custody. He is polite to his ex in front of the children, knowing that someday they will be old enough to draw their own conclusions. But that's still all ahead. Lil lives in a modest 2-room apartment on the outskirts of the West Lexington neighborhood. She works full-time as a secretary at a small insurance company. For the first time in her life, she had to work to earn a living. They say she doesn't go on dates, although many guys have heard from somewhere that she is easily accessible, so they don't give up trying. There were also rumors that a few bad guys quite recently slipped her some ecstasy and let her go around all night. But I don't know if this is true or not. I also heard that for a while she hoped that Dr. Porter would eventually call her, but for some reason it never happened. The kid has not yet met a decent woman who would restore his faith in marriage and help pick up the pieces, but maybe someday it will happen. Lately, he has started to smile more and more often. This is a good sign. As for me, I remain a bachelor, play the role of uncle to two wonderful children, and make sure that if someone suddenly tries to run over the kid, then I can guarantee with full confidence that this fight will be fair. End.